The tourists, they are unaware about this.
Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Anil Thomas. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Benjamin Netanyahu says Israeli forces operating inside Gaza City warns Lebanon's Hezbollah against escalating conflict. Uncertainty grips Bangladesh. Another 48-hour nationwide blockade begins today, demanding fresh polls in the country. India to host bilateral 2+2 ministerial dialogue in New Delhi on November 9th and 10th. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken and Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin to attend. And Cricket World Cup, Glenn Maxwell's Herculean double 100 seals Australia's 3-wicket win and a semi-final spot. In an attempt to neutralize terrorism in Gaza, Israeli forces are now fighting off Hamas at its own home. In a video address on Tuesday, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that their forces are operating from inside Gaza as it pressed on with a month-long offensive against Hamas. Netanyahu also warned Hezbollah to rethink before choosing sides with Hamas. Israel launched a counter-offensive against Hamas after the terrorist group attacked southern Israel on the 7th of October, killing 1,400 people and seizing several hostages.
Gaza City is encircled. We are operating inside it. We are increasing pressure on Hamas every hour, every day. We have killed thousands of terrorists above ground and below ground. If Hezbollah chooses to join the war, it'd be making a big mistake. No ceasefire without the release of our hostages.
Earlier, a top Israeli army commander also said that the Israeli Defense Forces troops were operating in the heart of Gaza City for the first time in decades.
For the first time in decades, the Israeli Defense Forces are fighting in the heart of Gaza City, at the heart of terrorism. This is a complex and difficult war, and to show my sorrow, it also comes at a price.
Well, as Israel combats Hamas, Yemen's Houthi group claims to have launched drones against the Jewish state. The group also said it had launched a new batch of drones against sensitive targets inside Israel. Iran-backed Houthis have rallied behind the Palestinians since Hamas attacked Israel. Houthis' military spokesperson has also blamed Israel for instability in the Middle East, saying that the circle of conflict in the region was being expanded by its continued crimes. He further said that the Houthis would continue to mount attacks until the Israeli aggression stops. Amid the Israel-Hamas conflict, UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Volker Turk is visiting West Asia. The UN High Commissioner will visit the Rafah border today. Earlier during his Cairo visit, the UN Commissioner said a solution to end the violence in Gaza is really important. Turk, in his engagement with government officials, civil societies, actors, victims and UN colleagues on the human side situation in the region. He will be traveling to Amman on Thursday.
It's the 1-month anniversary of this incredible escalation of violence that we have seen. I'm, of course, from a human rights perspective, extremely worried about the situation, about what is happening, and it is really important that a solution is found to end the violence and to get out of this horrible, horrible humanitarian and human rights situation for what's happening in Gaza.
The UN World Health Organization, that's WHO, has reiterated an urgent need for a humanitarian pause to ease the suffering across Gaza. Briefing reporters at the United Nations in Geneva, WHO spokesperson urged unhindered and safe access to deliver essential supplies to those in need.
Access is necessary, and that is to be done through air, not through air, but through road. This way we can bring in the supplies. We have the supplies. The whole UN has the supplies outside of Gaza at the south and the Rafah crossing from Al Arish onwards. The supplies road, the logistics is taken care of.
Satellite images released by Maxwell Technologies on Tuesday revealed 8 trucks queuing at Egypt's Rafah border, crossing with Gaza. Numerous large vehicles can be seen gathered on the Egyptian side of the border as residents of Gaza continue to face shortage of food, medicine and fuel. Shifting from the Israel-Hamas armed conflict to updates from the Russia-Ukraine war now, a Russian-installed official in the eastern region of Ukraine said that 6 people were killed in shelling in Donetsk by Ukrainian forces. The Russian-appointed heads of the region, Denis Pushilin, said that 11 more people were wounded in the incident as per the preliminary data. Ukrainian artillery soldiers fired rockets from makeshift Grad launchers at the front line in Zaporozhye region on Tuesday. The army unit has equipped pickup trucks with rocket launch pipes from Soviet-era Grad systems, claiming that the makeshift system offers greater mobility and flexibility than conventional launchers. Ukraine has retaken a few small villages in the southeastern of Zaporozhye region, but the progress has been little. A presidential decree said that the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has proposed extending an export ban on Ukrainian natural gas for the whole of this year. The decree urged Ukrainian governments to enhance its gas transmission system's capacity to ensure that natural gas import and storage in underground facilities. Earlier, the Prime Minister, Denis Shmyhal, said that Ukraine was ready to provide foreign energy traders with up to half of its underground gas storage capacity of 30 billion cubic meters. The largest state-owned gas producer, Naftogaz, said that the country intends to increase its gas production in this year to 19.1 billion cubic meters. The US Army needs Congress to approve a $3.1 billion to buy 155mm artillery rounds and to expand production to quickly replace stocks depleted by shipments to Ukraine and now Israel. The US and allies have sent more than 2 million rounds of 155 ammunition to Ukraine and has also sent the artillery to Israel. The chief weapons buyer for the army, Doug Bush, said that the supplement funding would build artillery production facilities across many states and added that the funding will expand production lines, strengthen the American economy, and also create new jobs. Time now to take a look at some other stories from across the world. People fleeing in Chad have reported a fresh wave of ethnically driven killings after the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, or the RSF, took control of the main army base in Sudan's West Darfur. People have reported that RSF forces are targeting the army base and a camp for internally displaced people, as fighting broke out in the nation between two warring sides in April and June this year. This Thanksgiving season, a design competition is hoping to feed over 1 million hungry New Yorkers in a creative way. The challenge is to build giant sculptures out of unopened cans of food. 28 teams transform 45,000 cans of tuna and salmon into enormous masterpieces like a ninja turtle, Winnie the Pooh, and also giraffes. Hollywood action star and politician Arnold Schwarzenegger was honored with the Los Angeles Museum's inaugural Award of Courage for his work advocating against anti-Semitism and bigotry. The award was presented by the Holocaust Museum at a ceremony.
It is known to be a big part. And then Mac is kind of the low-key guy.
And in a strange incident, a bear stole food delivered to a family on their front porch in Florida's Orlando. The bear was caught on a Ring camera, taking in its mouth the package that was kept by the delivery person and leaving the scene. The family ended up confused and in disbelief, watching everything on the front camera. The U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is set to discuss the deepening military relationship between Russia and North Korea when he arrives in Seoul on Wednesday. It's his first visit to South Korea since Yoon Suk-yeol became president last year. Here's Andrew Wood in Hong Kong with the latest.
The United States, Japan and South Korea have already condemned North Korea for supplying arms and ammunition to Russia for use in Ukraine. South Korea itself is actually quite a big producer and exporter of armaments. So far, Seoul says that it doesn't want to supply arms to countries that are at war. So this might be an area where Mr. Blinken might want to try to change the Seoul's president's, the South Korean's president's mind. Because after all, more armaments for Ukraine would probably help the country to fight back against Russia. There's also the perennial issue of North Korea. Back in August, Mr. Blinken said that if Beijing did not help to try to denuclearize North Korea, then America would have to strengthen its alliance with Japan and South Korea. And it certainly seems to be doing that. It's done that over the past month or so. There's much more cooperation between these two US allies in, well, virtually in sharing information about North Korea and also about the possible threats from China as well. So this also might be some maneuvering as well before the big meeting next week that's expected between President Xi Jinping and President Joe Biden in San Francisco on the sidelines of the APEC Forum for Pacific Rim countries in San Francisco. In Hong Kong, I'm Andrew Wood, reporting for DD India.
Well, still to come on this edition of DD India Live. Donald Trump's daughter heads to Manhattan courthouse for fraud trial. India and Malaysia move forward together as foreign ministers from both sides discuss security and trade. And grand laser show in Ayodhya to mark the Deepotsav celebration ahead of Diwali.
In a world that never stops, where information shapes our reality, one app stands out, helps you stay ahead of time. Introducing the DD India app, your gateway to a world of news right at your fingertips. Your most trusted source of news goes global, goes digital. Explore a world of options, top stories, live updates, in-depth analysis, and more. Stay informed wherever you are. Real-time alerts keep you ahead of the curve always. The DD India app, connecting you to the world one story at a time. Download now and explore the world of knowledge, insights, and authentic information.
Turning crisis into opportunity.
transforming ideas into action. Stories of real change. Tales of sustainable solution. This series is going to tell stories of such changemakers. Watch Changemakers on DD India.
You're watching DD India Live. I'm Anil Thomas. Moving forward, the White House has urged caution at polls showing President Joe Biden lagging behind leading Republican candidate Donald Trump. Biden trails Trump in 5 of the 6 most important battleground states a year before elections of 2024, according to the polls. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre briefed journalists and responded to questions on several issues confronting the administration.
Going to speak to anything related to 2024, and I also want to be very clear here, like, we have to really take these polls with a grain of salt, as we should really be very mindful here. And one of the reasons why is just a year ago, right, back in 2022, there was the red wave that never materialized, right? And then back in October of 22, there were multiple stories about how there was going to be a red wave, Democrats were going to be wiped out, and, you know, we're not talking about that, what we were seeing back in October of 2022. Look.
Well, Donald Trump's daughter is due to testify in her father's fraud trial on Wednesday. Ivanka Trump is expected to appear in a Manhattan courthouse to give evidence in the civil case. The former president of the United States is accused of inflating his wealth to secure better loans from banks. He denies any wrongdoing, calling the trial politically motivated. Sally Patterson has more from New York.
Ivanka Trump is not a co-defendant in this civil fraud trial. She's instead listed as a witness in the case after her team successfully argued that claims against her were too old. But they couldn't get her out of the case completely. She's being brought to New York City to give evidence, just as her father, Donald Trump, and brothers have been forced to do over the past 2 weeks. The case is being brought by New York Attorney General Letitia James. She alleges the former president and his co-defendants committed repeated fraud by inflating assets to secure better loans and insurance policies. Now, Judge Arthur Engeron has already ruled Trump is liable for fraud. Now he, and he alone, as there's no jury in this case, is deciding how much Trump will have to pay in damages. The New York Attorney General also wants to cancel Trump's business licenses in her state, and that could see him lose control of his properties here. Trump has called the trial a scam, saying it's a ploy by his political opponents. During his own testimony on Monday, tensions were high, and the judge threatened to dismiss him from the witness stand. Now, even though Ivanka left the Trump Organization in 2017, prosecutors argue she remains financially and professionally intertwined with the company. Her lawyers dispute that, saying she's being needlessly forced to testify in order to harass her and her father. Sally Patterson in New York, reporting for DD India.
Well, the US Supreme Court is mulling over upholding the legality of a federal law that criminalizes keeping guns under domestic violence restraining orders. The case's consideration involves Zake Remini, a Texas man who pleaded guilty of illegally possessing guns in violation of the law. Around 250 people rallied outside the court, urging the justice to overturn the previous ruling. The justice showed a willingness to find a balance between U.S. Constitution's Second Amendment's right to keep and bearing of arms by applying a standard that would disarm people deemed dangerous. Meanwhile, analysts, while contemplating all angles of the issue, says a final ruling could provide a more balanced approach between a modern and historical law.
Supreme Court said that from now on, the constitutionality of modern gun laws should be determined not based on things like whether the laws, further their stated purposes, whether they save lives, whether they prevent terror, intimidation, and coercion, but rather based solely on whether they are consistent with historical tradition, which is a new test for the Second Amendment, and it's led to a lot of sort of disagreement and I think confusion in the lower courts. So the Solicitor General, I think, was very clear that when she uses the word responsible, she doesn't mean it in a colloquial sense about, is the person the kind of person who takes out the recycling once a week or whatever. This is about danger to others.
Well, Portuguese Prime Minister Antonio Costa has announced his resignation following his involvement in a corruption probe. His resignation came hours after the police raided government buildings as part of an inquiry into corruption. Costa's chief of staff was arrested earlier as part of the investigation, which focuses on alleged corruption and influence peddling relating to lithium mine concessions and green energy projects. Costa, who has been the country's socialist leader since 2015, defended his innocence and expressed his trust in the justice system. The Bangladesh Nationalist Party, or the BNP, and like-minded other parties will enforce another round of 48-hour rock, rail and waterway blockade across Bangladesh from today. The blockade is to mount pressure on the government to step down and hold the next elections under a non-partisan administration. The BNP has said that the blockade program will be observed from 6 a.m. on Wednesday to 6 a.m. on Friday across Bangladesh. The fresh agitation was announced on the last day of the opposition's 48-hour nationwide blockade, which had been marked by widespread incidents of violence, including clashes with police and torching and of vandalizing vehicles. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar and his Malaysian counterpart Dr. Zamri Abdul Qadir co-chaired the 6th India-Malaysia Joint Commission meeting in New Delhi on Tuesday. The two leaders under the Joint Commission meeting reviewed the progress on the security, trade and finance sectors as well as maritime cooperation between the two countries. Both the sides also discussed regional and multilateral issues of mutual interest. Taking to social media, India's External Affairs Minister said that the 6th Joint Commission meeting will take forward India and Malaysia's enhanced strategic partnership. The upcoming 5th annual US-India 2+2 Ministerial Dialogue in New Delhi will be held on Thursday. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken and US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin will hold the 2+2 dialogue with their Indian counterparts, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar and Defense Minister Rajnath Singh. The primary focus of these meetings will be to encompass critical issues including strengthening defense cooperation, exploring emerging technologies, taking forward issues related to space, and also adapting to the evolving global landscape. Let's take a look at some other stories making news today. Well, the air quality across India's capital continues to be in the severe category as per the Central Pollution Control Board. In the wake of the worsening air quality in Delhi's national capital region, the Supreme Court on Tuesday sternly directed the governments of Punjab, Rajasthan and Haryana to take immediate steps to stop stubble burning by farmers in the state, which the court said was one of the major contributors to air pollution. An earthquake of magnitude 3.2 occurred in the northern state of India, Punjab. According to the National Center for Seismology, the depth of the earthquake was 10 kilometers. Ahead of Diwali, a grand laser show featuring colorful lights added grandeur to the Deep Utsav celebrations in the northern state of India's Uttar Pradesh's Ayodhya. The laser lights showed different colors flashing across at night sky, mesmerizing the audience. As India gears up to celebrate Diwali, specially abled students from Bhubaneswar painted an earthen lamp and appealed to people to illuminate homes with diyas to help potters and pottery. On to sports, Maxwell single-handedly guided Australia to an improbable 3-wicket win over Afghanistan in a World Cup match on Super Tuesday. Maxwell fought through cramps to smash an unbeaten 201 of just 128 deliveries, sealing the team's spot in the semis. They became the third team to reach the semi-finals, with India and South Africa having already booked their spots. Afghanistan's loss has also kept hopes of Pakistan qualifying for the semi-final still alive. Well, that's all for this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, and also Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I am Anil Thomas. From all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.